welcome back to Latino Medlife. So glad to have you here. As promised, I was going to talk about CNA 2023, pros and cons. Is it for you? Is it not? We'll discuss some of these things, but I'm going to put the cons list in another video just because I want to go through everything in detail and just give you guys an idea for like what to expect really. Without further ado, let's talk about what a CNA does. Now, I did say in the welcome video that a CNA is a certified nurse assistant, just like an EMT is like an emergency medical technician, right? A lot of us may be thinking about phlebotomy and all these other things. Ultimately, the route I decided to go down was CNA because they work under the supervision of an RN or an LVN. I do have a few nurses in my family. They do live a little further away, but it was the route that I also chose because my mom was a CNA and she was like heart set on nursing, and actually a few of my aunts were CNAs, but they decided that it wasn't for them because it exposes you to the medical world, and the truth is it's not as glamorous as you would think, but that's okay. We're going to talk about all of that, definitely. Nevertheless, your main jobs as a CNA are to assist the RN in getting vitals, right? You want to make sure you get blood pressure, respirations, you want to check the patient's O2, their oxygen, you're the one who goes around and does that. You're checking for temperature. This was also really big around, COVID. Of course, you don your PPE and things like that, but a CNA performs ADLs and things like that for a patient as well. Patient or resident. We say patient when we're talking about the hospital, and we refer to resident when we're talking about a SNF, which is like a skilled nursing facility or a nursing home. So it's just terminology that we use because residents are long-term, they live there, and so we don't refer to them as patients, things like that. Nevertheless, so you perform ADLs, right? So activities of daily living. So the things that you do each and every day, like, you eat, you shower, you exercise, you're able to use the bathroom, things like that, right? So activities of daily living encompass all of those things. If someone has just been in an accident, or someone has just suffered from a stroke or a heart attack, they're recovering from some acute illness, those are the things that we basically help with, right? So each place is different, but when we talk about CNAs in general, you are going to have a patient load just like your nurse is going to have a patient load. But your nurse might be busy giving medications to someone else, or she might be busy helping someone. There are a lot of different nurses, right? There's like a wound nurse that comes in, infection control nurse, but they tend to be pretty busy. So if that call light goes off, it's you that goes and, returns that call. Now, some of the things you will do, like I said, are going to be assist people with ambulating. Say someone is recovering and they're learning how to walk again, you're going to assist them with those things, right? Say they've been in bed for 3 weeks, you're going to help them to slowly transition into walking, eventually to the bathroom. Or someone suffered from a stroke and their left side or right side is not functioning properly, you're going to aid them when it comes to eating and things like that. You will have somebody, you have a whole team. Basically, when somebody comes in this type of situation, you have a whole team, and they have a whole team dedicated to them. You're the CNA, you work with a nurse, you work with, other healthcare professionals, but you basically help them to regain some of their motor functions if possible. Okay, without further ado, that's a little bit of the rundown of CNA, but let's talk about the pros because we can get more into detail with that. Okay, job stability. Now, this may not be applicable to everybody quite yet, but later down the line, say you move to a new town, a city, college, state, this, that, the third, to be honest, you want to ensure that you're going to have a job, right? Say you got into college, you got into your nursing program. Your CNA license, depending on where you get it, you can basically relocate without a problem. I remember working at the first facility I ever worked at. There was actually a CNA who came in from North Dakota, I believe. So it's definitely possible, and it's flexible. So 2, flexibility. CNA is super flexible. We have part-time jobs and full-time jobs, but the lovely thing about working in the medical field is that you can work per diem, which means you can create your own schedule. Say you're a student, and I tell everybody I'm a student, I'm an athlete. I can't work, Monday through Friday during school time or during meets or competitions, things like that, right? So per diem works best actually for me because I get to pick which shifts I want to work and things like that. So maybe someone who works per diem is like a contract worker. It all kind of depends. Some facilities offer it, some don't, but it's generally work when you have the availability to do so. And then, you can work part-time or full-time. That's also an option. While we're on the topic of schedules, I would say generally morning shift starts from 7 a.m. to 2:30 or about 3, and then PM starts at 2:30 or 3 p.m. and it ends at 11 p.m. Knock shift, which is basically the night shift where you stay overnight and you work, is from about 10:30 to 11 p.m. It depends on the facility, to about 6:30, 7 in the morning. It can range from there, but that's the typical schedule of a CNA or working in a nursing home, that is. Hospitals do differ, and nursing homes as well. I have worked my fair share of 8-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts. I have worked 12-hour shifts, and I've even worked 16-hour shifts in like COVID wards and stuff like that. So, the third pro when it comes to being a CNA is that the job is emotionally rewarding. Like I said, you work alongside people who generally tend to suffer from an acute or chronic illness, and you become really like intertwined. I don't know if intertwined is the word. You are really involved, right? You are a member of the healthcare team, and you are helping this person to get better, whether it's learning how to gain that motor control, that motor function back, whether it's simple things like walking or being able to utilize certain equipment. Like, you are there every step of the way, and people are very grateful to you. They're very sweet. Sometimes they'll even tell you that they love you, and it's very moving because sometimes they don't have family that is here in this state. Sometimes they have family that's elsewhere, or there's other factors going on that they don't have maybe support from friends or family, or a loved one has passed away and that was their support system, and their kids are living out of state. Nevertheless, what makes it really rewarding is that you're helping people every day to get a little bit better each and every day, and you get to learn a lot in the process. I remember being really excited isn't the word. It's definitely not excited, but I remember having like a kind of like a mind-blowing moment when I was learning about spinal cord injuries in my anatomy and physiology class, and having been in the nursing home and seeing what that actually looks like, and helping people who are in those positions, who are bedridden or sometimes in a comatose like state. It's almost like mind-blowing, because like what you learn in school is so textbook. It's so textbook. There's just no other way to explain it or say it. But when you're there with the person and you're helping them, and whether it's, helping them to use the bathroom, or you're helping them to make a phone call, or you're setting up a cute little iPad call with their family, like whatever it is that you are doing, like everything that you learn, you will start to see. And it's very interesting. Like, I remember even learning about like white blood cell count, and I had a situation and somebody was going to be discharged and taken to the hospital, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I was just learning about white blood cell differential white blood cell count and things like that. So like I said, for those of you that are thinking about it and you're like, you know what, like I really want to do it and I think it'll make me a great nurse, it will, because you are with that resident or that patient. You are by their side all the time. You know, the nurse is busy. She's doing a million things. She's charting for so many people and making calls and labs and this and that, you know, and you collect urine samples. You collect, you know, bowel samples too sometimes. You have to empty the catheter. Like, you're telling your nurse, oh, so-and-so had an input of this. So-and-so had an output of that. So-and-so had this, oh, so many fluids. You literally chart everything and you tell your nurse, so-and-so weighs this much. Things like that. So emotionally rewarding in the way that you get to help people and you get to see them get better. Okay, now affordability. CNA school is not that expensive, and for the most part, it's a pretty fast process compared to other things. I have heard of CNA programs being a year long. I know Mission College used to have a program and it was about a year long, which was a pre-nursing requirement. I'm pretty sure they don't have it anymore. I think things changed once COVID happened. But the school that I went to was about $2,000 for my tuition, and my program was a 3-month program. But there are also facilities who will pay because, you know, I don't want to just say the pandemic. CNAs and nurses are always going to be in demand, but it's a job that is very difficult. So there's a lot of in and out, you know, people coming and going, things like that. But you can get a company to pay for you if you say that you're interested. Like, I'm always seeing job positions open and like things like that for CNA. Like, oh, we'll pay for your schooling as long as you agree to work with us for a year after that. You know, contract for a year. Get some coffee. Like I said, my program was about $2,000. I've heard of people paying less than that, so I kind of felt like I got gypped. But that's okay. It is what it is. Generally, like I said, your schooling isn't going to take that long. It shouldn't take, if it's longer than a year, don't do it. It should be under a year. I'm going to say even under like 6 months. Okay. But I also do want to inform you guys about the schooling aspect before I move on to the 5th point. A little bit about CNA school. So you go to school, right? You basically learn skills test. And then you take a test that is given by the state, and it's typically proctored by American Red Cross. But what happens is you study for like 25 different skills. And this is like a very watered down version of like, you know, CNA school. In between, you also get to go to clinicals, so you get to like see everything. I didn't get to have clinicals, so that was really hard during the pandemic. I had no clue what to expect. All we had done was practice on a mannequin. Funny enough, there were only 8 people in my class because it was during the height of the pandemic. Nevertheless, after school, you're able to take this test, and then you're able to get certified. But there also is the hands-on portion, which is the skills test, and then you have the written portion as well. So that's kind of the neat thing about CNA schools. It can be very fast, but you're kind of waiting for those. You're waiting to see if you passed or not, and then you're kind of in limbo for a little bit. But after that, you know, you're able to apply and things like that. Okay, so let's talk about the 5th point. It's a very enriching work experience. Like I said, you're a member of a healthcare team, so you are the CNA, and you work with an LVN, you work with an RN, you work with the occupational therapist, you work with sometimes even, I want to say the speech pathologist, say someone had a stroke, and you're going to hear me say stroke a lot because it's very common. It's very common. Nevertheless, sometimes people have a really hard time swallowing after having a stroke. Certain muscles are able to contract while others aren't. And so a speech pathologist will come in and kind of assess like what foods that person is able to eat or which foods they're not able to eat. Things like that. Sometimes someone who has suffered from a stroke will choke on water because they can't swallow it, and so their diet will be changed to like a thickened consistency, like a thickened water, we can say, and it kind of has like a honey consistency. It's thick, but it ensures that they're not choking on their fluids. So it's neat because you get to learn what other members of the healthcare team do, and I think that's great exposure. You know, the phlebotomist comes in from time to time, and they're like, "Oh, can you help me hold so and so down?" And you're like, "Yeah," because they gotta draw blood. Sometimes people are a little freaked out of needles. You get to see the doctor. The doctor does come in. That's also really interesting. Yeah, it's a very entry-level job, which is nice. Because leading into number 6, you have the opportunity to specialize at some point, right? So what you want to do is get about 6 months of experience in a nursing home, and if you feel ready to apply to a hospital, you can. Maybe you want to take on some assignments, like you want to work for an agency or a registry. That's what we call it. When you're basically like a contract worker, but they send you to locations that are short-staffed and they need help. Generally, they'll pay you a little bit more with an agency just because you are a little bit more experienced. I've seen a lot of CNAs do that, and then they apply to the hospital. I've seen some straight out of CNA school go to hospitals right away. It just kind of depends on the skills that you're comfortable with. Like, I know for me, I was very intimidated, like when it came to families and stuff. Like it was very hard for me to just communicate with that kind of stuff. I'm generally, I think by nature, like a shy person, and especially at work, like when I'm new to something, I don't want to mess up. So I'm like, I don't want to things like that. But you gain your confidence as you go, and it's very lovely. So again, back to the opportunity to specialize. Once you get that experience, you can work, I would say, like on any floor that you really want to. I know many CNAs who worked in labor and delivery, and they found that it wasn't for them. Thought they wanted to be labor and delivery nurses, and then, were there, and they were like, it's a little stressful, like, you have to deal with the parents, and the parents are stressed because it's their first time having a child, or say like you have a mom and like you're not a mom, and they feel a little like, I don't know if I can trust this person. But that's the nice thing about CNA. You can try the emergency department, you can try ICU, telemetry. I mean, the sky's the limit. That's what I like to say. Definitely. For me right now, I'll be honest, the hospital is a little intimidating, but only because I've been working night shift for a little while. So I think transitioning into day shift, going straight to a hospital where it's super duper fast paced is going to be a lot. Plus, I'm already getting ready to go to nursing school, so it's kind of like, A lot of the nurses tell me not to work during nursing school anyway, so I'm kind of like, I'm not too sure. Night shift is super flexible. But, point 7. CNA is definitely a growing job market. Like I said, it has a high turnover. There's always people like in and out. But I would say it's pretty good for the majority of us because you will always have a job, and like I said, it's a growing job market, so you don't really have to worry about losing your job or getting fired or anything like that, which is very nice. And moving on to point 8, every day is different as a CNA. You might be given, say, like 28 people, right? You have 28 people to take care of. The next day you might have 15 people. The next day you might have 12 people. The next day you might have 30-something people. Every day is different, and like I said, like everything is different. Each person, the way you care for one person is not the way you care for the other. You care for people differently. So someone, like I said, may have suffered from a stroke. You take care of them very differently from someone who is in the memory care unit, has Alzheimer's or dementia, things like that. So if you're one of those people that kind of gets bored, maybe doing like reception work, or like doing like paperwork and things like that, maybe this is the job for you. You you'd be surprised. You see the fire department come in, you see EMS come in, and you know, people are being taken out and brought in on gurneys, and you're like, whoa, what the heck? It's like 7 in the morning. But each day is different, and it's definitely a learning experience. 9, you have the opportunity to travel. Now, like I said, there was one CNA that came from like North Dakota or South Dakota, one of the two, but she was here on an assignment, I want to say. I have not sought out like travel CNA, only because like I'm getting ready to go to nursing school, and I feel like it's a little too late for me at this point. But yeah, people make a whole thing of it. Like, it's actually quite amazing. You're able to use your license, but if you work with the travel agency, they'll send you to the short staff locations, and they'll pay for your plane ticket, they'll pay for your hotel. Sometimes they give you a stipend for food. It's really neat. I would say if you're new and you still kind of got a ways to go, you're working on your nursing prerequisites, you know, you still got to do A&P, still got to do chemistry, maybe consider it. I mean, if you're single, you don't really have like kids or anything that's like obligatory, like keeping you here, like, I think, you know, that's neat. I actually wanted to do travel CNA for a little while, but I just thought, you know, okay, I'm gonna bunker down and go to school full time, and through the grace of God, I'll be a nurse one day. Okay, nevertheless, 10, continued education. And I love this, honestly. This is what keeps me going, because a lot of LVNs and RNs that I know, I'll be honest, some are CNAs and some aren't, but the ones that were CNAs, God, they make such great nurses, and I think it's because they've had to deal with the dirty work, which, like I said, I'm going to talk about in another video. But when I mean dirty work, I mean like you're dealing with, you know, urine, feces, blood, vomit, every bodily fluid you can imagine possible you're dealing with. Sometimes people have wounds and they need the wound vac, and so, you know, you gotta make sure everything's nice and sanitized, if you will. But what's really neat is that you know how to care for somebody at bedside. No shame to nurses. I'm not saying anything like that. Like, there's some phenomenal nurses out there who were never CNAs. But when you do have that CNA experience and you know how to take care of someone from the bedside, like, point of view, it's so lovely to move on and, you know, NP, or maybe you decide you want to become a doctor, you want to go to medical school. Actually, Dr. Gray, I don't know if you guys know, I think it's called Medical School Insiders. No, Med School Insiders HQ. Anyway, it's led by the host, Dr. Gray, and he has a lot of people from different walks of life that are in the med school process, which is really neat. And some of them were CNAs. So, again, these are the pros, and I'm very ecstatic about it because there's some really awesome benefits to being a CNA. But I can't downplay that there are also cons to being a CNA. And I'll say from my experience, I know nurses who are nurse practitioners who were CNAs for maybe 6 months before they said, I can't handle this. This is not where it's at. This is not for me. I'm not doing this. I know that one day I'll be a great nurse, but CNA is just not for me. And these people went on to be great, like great, phenomenal nurses. Nursing instructors, nursing charge nurses. But I pause because, as ecstatic as I am, again, there is a con to being a CNA, and those cons can change someone forever. Like I said, my aunts, or like my mom, people who thought they wanted to be nurses like their whole lives, who were like exposed to, you know, the blood and the bed sores and the smells and the poop and the diarrhea and the vomit, and just said, nursing is not for me. So stay tuned for that video because it's going to be great. It might get a little dark, but it's going to be great, and I think it'll also help you guys in understanding some of the cons of being a CNA. See you guys in the next video.